up, guys? It's me, R&D Lee, bringing you another tech talk. Today's one is on doing a battery swap on the B18-DX. So we've done the B10X, we got that on the channel if you haven't checked that out, and you got a B10X, look at that. This one's for the big dog, the B18-DX, so similar type of thing, but there's a few kind of little tips and tricks and things like that. But basically, the battery box is held on by 6 screws in the top of the deck here. So this guy's obviously been well used, that's what we like. So these 6 screws, and you just go holding the box just so it doesn't collapse when it goes on there. Hold that and just go and undo the screws. If you don't have a screw gun, it will take you a little longer. Or go out and buy one. I'm a big fan. So like I said, on this last one, making sure that you're actually holding so that it doesn't just totally collapse or screw anything like that. So now you can see this gasket here down below. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a gasket between there and then the battery box. So now depending on the exact length of your motor wires, you might actually need to, I'm going to flip this guy over. You might need to actually remove your truck as well, but if you can, I'll maybe show you a close-up here. If you can, looking down in here, actually twist your wires, okay, kind of between your motors, get a little space, then you can actually flip your box over, okay? So it's not like, perfect or anything like that, but that gives you enough space to where they twist, and then if you can't kind of, maneuver it there or whatever, then worst case, you need to actually take your back truck off to give a little more kind of space in there, all right? But most of the time, you can kind of maneuver them and twist them over. So then you need to undo, there's a bunch of little screws around here. So I've actually taken this one off before, so I only have a few on here. Makes it easy, but you need to go and unscrew those guys. This is an epoxy plate that helps for waterproofing. So we have this silicone pad here that does some waterproofing, but for extra protection we do a little bit of waterproofing on this guy here. So same thing, and these guys actually I'm going to swap out and do a number 1 Phillips bit, just because they're kind of like a little bit of a smaller screw and it will help not strip it. Frisbee or anything kind of flat to keep your parts in, obviously big fan. Well, you don't like to hear that one's like blah 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 blah. Normally I'm more careful than that. Alright, from there you're just gonna basically remove that plate. Okay. Now we're looking down inside here. So let me kind of get maybe an angle you can see. You're seeing your actual kind of battery there. This is what's called a BMS. So this is actually what's kind of controlling the health of your battery, making sure it's not undercharged, overcharged, overcurrent. So it's kind of like it's the safety mechanism for that battery, all right? So that's kind of what's going on. And then on the other side, kind of where this actual, where this plate is where the actual kind of ESC is. So that plate is actually heat sink for the ESC. So it's kind of on the other side of that little wall right there. So getting to the point, the battery, you're just going to kind of weasel your way out. You can just kind of like leverage it out a little bit. You want to be careful in there in general, but you can take, just something to kind of like, maneuver it out. Don't want to be touching, obviously you don't want to avoid electrical contacts and things like that because this is electricity, but it's just enough to kind of like pop that little guy out. So once you do that, you have a few connections right here. So 2 connections to be exact. So one is your big dog, your power connection. So go ahead and do that guy first. That's cutting the majority of your power from from the battery to the ESC. And the other one, this little guy right here, is actually the charging one. So this is kind of like small wires. This is the charge current one. So there's 2 separate circuits in here. One is a discharge. So when you're actually gunning it, accelerating, bam, that's where all the current is flowing through. All the electrons are coming through this big fat wire. So that's, big chunky gauge. But for the charge current, it's monitored differently kind of in this BMS circuit. So that's a separate circuit, and it has doesn't need, you know, tons of current. It's just kind of a trickle charge type of thing. So that's just these small wires there. That's the reason that there's two connections, those little XT connectors. Then that's it. Toss that guy aside. Bam, go get your new one, which for me is the same as the old one, but for you guys, you know, and why would you want to change it? Well, maybe there's been a problem with your battery. There was a, you know, bad cell or something like that, warranty said that's something that needs to be replaced potentially. The other one is maybe you've reached the end of your lifespan. So we guarantee all our batteries 500 cycles. That's easy. So that's 500 kind of charges. That, you know, riding every couple days, that's going to get you a couple years of riding. So that's like, you know, that's kind of like standard for these 18650s. Sometimes you'll get a bit longer, but at 500 cycles, you should be down to, you know, still around 80% capacity. So it's not like, the thing's not dead at that point, but you'll find your range, that's just the way lithium batteries work. Your range, every charge cycle that you do, comes down a fraction. So after 500 cycles, you should still be around 80%. But, you know, say you've had it for you ride every day, you're charging, and it depends on the health of the battery and the temperature and all these kind of factors. But in general, if your battery health has kind of gone down to the point where you aren't happy with your ride and you want to replace the battery, that's another reason. So this is, say you're a good guy, you're going to go ahead, rest it back in here, redo the connections. This is your little guy, XT connector, and this is your big dog, XT60. You can't really screw this up. These are obviously kind of male-female things, but the shape of this thing, you can't get it backwards. But just in case, you still want to pay attention to it. You don't really want to be reversing polarity at all. So just make sure it's got a round end and a square end, so make sure you match those up. You guys are good with shapes. That's really all there is to it on the electrical side of things. Then you're just going and kind of resting this guy back in there, just making sure, you know, paying attention to there's a few kind of little slots. You might actually want to kind of take a close-up in here to make sure this wire goes down in that slot down there. And your battery balance leads, these things are called balance leads, so they actually check the voltage of each one of these cells, all right? So basically they have kind of a little slot that they go into, and you're just gonna pop that guy down in there, just making sure everything's kind of sitting smooth, nothing's weird or overlapping. Now you got all that kind of chaos, you just need to position it in there, make sure everything's kind of coming down nice and flat. You just don't want anything kind of like, you know, bent over or hunched or kind of on an edge. So just, you know, kind of maneuver things until they feel like that's, yeah, nice. It's going to sit flat when you put your lid back on. Then you put your lid back on. So kind of holding that there, lining things up. And then I go and just kind of like place all my little screws by hand first. Oh, actually, let me make sure I did that. Oh, there is, this is kind of stupid on our part, but there is actually a right way to do this. So, you know, this guy has two, this guy has one. Hindsight, we should have done that differently, but just kind of the way the box worked and the offset of the battery in there, we had to do it like that. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit annoying. But if things aren't lining up on that front one, then you know that that's probably the reason. So just, I put them all just kind of like finger tight by hand, just kind of get them all lined up. Yeah, and then once you got them all in, it is time to, and I actually, like I said, I'm using a screw gun here. So because these go into plastic, have it on your lowest torque setting. That's my tip there, because you don't want to like blow through anything. Cool. Okay, next step is we're going to go back and kind of flip that guy over again. Like I said, kind of pulling, maneuvering, lifting him up, doing the little twist. Shouldn't be too hard. Now it's going to be ready to set back down there, but you want to make sure that you get your silicone gasket in place. So laying him down on there, finding all the right holes. Now for some of these guys, the screws have actually kind of fallen out the other side, but a few are still in there, all right? So I've just kind of like placed it on there in general. Now, this can be kind of tricky because the lip of this thing sometimes doesn't want to always, or the thing doesn't want to sit down inside that lip. There's a few things. You can just crank it down and then go afterwards and kind of like take a screwdriver and kind of pull it out around. That's one way. Or you can kind of do it a little bit as you go. I'll see, there's no kind of right or wrong. Sometimes these things are a little bit fiddly, but I'll just go and try and get it, you know, in there the best that we can, just to make sure. Like I said, I'm just kind of walking around there. We're going to do the flip, so when I flip, some of the screws might come out, but that's okay. We'll replace them. Now the key is, once again, you're supporting this underside as you do it. So I got 2 screws to kind of stay with me. That's pretty good, actually. We'll kind of just, since they're there, we'll just kind of get those guys a little bit tight. And then go and grab your other ones. If you've kind of got one back on this corner, then the next one that I would do is the opposite corner. Because then once you got 2 corners, then you're nice and supported. You don't really need to use your hand anymore. So these guys now, like I said, I've got that a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy kind of cranking it down because I know that gasket is a little bit messed up. Like I said, you can, and that is really doesn't matter. It's more of just a more of an aesthetic thing than anything, but you still, you know, you want it to look right. So flip that guy back over. I've kind of cinched all that down, but now I want to go around and walk around again, get my screwdriver in there and just kind of walk around and make sure it is all out. This time I'll try and do it without my back to you guys. Keep walking, keep walking. Yeah, and that is done. Even this little guy in there, and that. Now that that's done and you've got the lip kind of out, give it one more tighten down. Pretty good. So we just swapped a battery on a B18-DX. If you guys got any questions, if I didn't cover anything, leave a comment down below. We'll respond to that. If you got any other questions or suggestions for more tech talks, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. G'day.